to talk about two things, and that will be the warrant articles that have money associated with it, and the town budget. And the way it works is we're going to go through the budget and the warrant, or Brian will go through the warrant. We'll take your input. At the end of the hearing, we'll close the hearing and talk about what we have heard and possibly modify the budget per input for inclusion in the warrant and to be voted on at the town meeting. Any questions about what we're going to do tonight? Okay. Mary Lou, do you anything you want to say first, or?
No, do you want to salute the flag?
Okay, thank you, Mary Lou. Mary Lou, would you lead us in a salute to the flag?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. How about a prayer? We need that.
Okay.
So I would like to make one editorial comment, and that is that at the end of 2017, there were, if you look at the proposed operating budget, page 7, under capital outlay, which is category 4900, there were two amounts of money that were erroneously sent to the trustees of the trust fund. They should not have been sent to them. It was money that was to be pulled out. So I am going to change this spreadsheet to reflect the fact that as of the end of the year, for line item 4904, .500 repair of town roads, I will be pulling out the $33,000, and on line 4904.550, I will be pulling out $30,000. I will be requesting those funds back to the general fund from the trustees of the trust fund.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
All right. Brian, how about the warrants?
Okay.
And the reason that we're doing the warrants first is because the warrants, the dollars in the warrants are reflected in the budget, so we'll talk about the warrants, and when we get to it in the budget, it's been discussed already.
All right. So this year, we currently have a total of 12 warrants on here. The first, obviously, is going to be the ones that we vote on at the election. And so once we take public comments, once and the selectmen are comfortable, the selectmen will recommend, I believe, all the warrants that are here, and it'll be reflected within these warrants. So that'll be one addition that we put in that the selectmen will recommend. If something does change and the selectmen don't recommend, then that'll be reflected as well. But as of now, I believe they'll be all reflected that the selectmen do support and recommend all, well, the 11 warrants here. All right, so number one, obviously, again, is just the ballot. Number two, to see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $20,000 to be deposited into the Moose Mountain Capital Reserve Fund. That is the reserve fund that we've been accumulating funds in order to repair the Moose Mountain Bridge. If anyone has any questions or comments, I'll just kind of go one by one and we'll just take it from there. We good? Number three, to see if the town will see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $16,750 in order to fund the balance of the Moose Mountain Bridge engineering, and fund this appropriation by authorizing the withdrawal of said sum from the Moose Mountain Capital Reserve Fund. So we have a balance remaining to complete the engineering, get the permits so we can begin the project once the planning and permits are done. We have another balance of $16,750 that needs to be paid. Right.
So just to be clear, we're going to put 20 in and take 16,750 out.
Correct.
That's what you're reporting.
Yep. Okay. Number four, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $80,000 to be deposited into the Road and Bridge Repair Capital Reserve Fund. This is the capital reserve fund that's been established for many years that we keep in place in order to fund the roads. We build up a larger balance for larger projects. We withdraw money, and we continue to fund the road projects that way. No questions on that? Number 6, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $80,000 for the major repair of town roads and to fund this appropriation by authorizing the withdrawal of said sum from the Road and Bridge Repair Capital Reserve Fund. This is where we have estimated our road projects this year will be approximately $80,000. So it's essentially going to be a clean in and out. Some years we put extra funds in to that particular fund in order to build it up. Other years we put in less and pull more out and draw the fund down. This year we're going to be basically doing an even split.
So talk to why we have it in and out, in case we don't take it out.
Well, if we were to put this money into the operating budget, let's say, and we did not do a road project, that money would just then go back in to buy the tax rate down, and we wouldn't then have the money for that next road project. So by putting this money there, for some reason we don't get to a road project for whatever reason, whether legal issues, we will still have the money in place to do that road project when time and the environment permits. Frank?
We have a lot of folks here who haven't been here for the last few meetings. Could you just really quickly list the road projects you're currently planning on doing this year for this $80,000?
I believe we're looking at doing Bryce Drive, finally. We're looking at doing a blacktop on Pipe Brook. And there's also some aprons we want to do at the dirt roads. Any other questions? Is that it? Diane?
I checked the balances as best I could on the, well, let me ask you a question. Can you tell me what the current balance is, notwithstanding the mistaken 33,000 that went into that
I don't
fund?
have my town report. You got one there?
Oh, yes, I do. Yes, I do.
We tried to take the money that's reported in the town report.
Okay, so the town report from last year indicated that there had started a balance of $37,000. We put in $80,000, so that brings it up to roughly 112. As of and nothing came out of it this past year, is that correct?
So I would suggest you talk to the trustees of the trust fund to get the details on the transactions. They meet quarterly, and it's all...
No, that's not what I'm asking.
Well, you're asking about the details of ins and outs.
No, I'm asking about the balance.
And I'm asking you to see the trustees of the trust fund for the balance.
Okay,
Just to answer that question, the beginning balance was $61,455. New cash funds generated in last year's warrants was $75,000. We had a withdrawal of $99,000, which did leave a balance of roughly $39,700 in that fund at the end of last year. That's according to the town report generated in
See, and
December.
the nonverbals indicate that she's not resonating with that. That's why I would suggest you see the trustees of the trust fund.
my only, and I don't mean to be picky about this, because my calculations indicate that there's going to be a large balance in that, even with the in and out that's planned for next year, and I'm just wondering if we really need to set aside $80,000.
Different question. Different question.
Sorry.
You want to take it?
Well, we've looked at the road projects and aprons that we're going to be doing, and we've come to that number of 80,000. We also know that we have other larger projects coming down the pike in 19, 20, 21. So the idea is to build that reserve up, so when we do hit a bigger project that's going to cost the town $100,000 to $150,000, we'll have that money at least begin to build up. I guess it's going to come down to whether or not the town wants to keep that much money in reserve in anticipation of future projects or not.
We took the number way down when we did Stone, but we used to try to hold it about 125.
So,
Really?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank
So
you.
we're trying to build it back up,
Okay,
but we're low now.
thank you.
good. Anyone else? All right, a couple smaller ones here. Number 6, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $500 to be deposited to the Conservation Fund. The Conservation Commission has a relatively small fund that they do to fund certain projects. Right now, they're looking at doing certain things like a forestry study for the town property that was purchased, and they would use some of those funds to take care of that. Number 7, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $500 to be deposited into the Heritage Fund. That's another account that the Heritage, they take care of certain things like, the town book. They also do projects over at the older town, the older town buildings. They look to offset costs sometimes, and also there's times we need to do studies on things like plaster or historical items. They go ahead and they have that money at their disposal.
And they pay for half the lights.
They did pay for half the lights. They offset some of the costs of the money there.
Yes, you did mention town books. I think restoring the town books is a separate fund, isn't it?
No, he meant town books as the town history book.
Oh, fine, okay, fine, got it.
I didn't mean to
Thank you.
say.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Not that formal. All right, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $30,000 to be deposited in the Townhouse Capital Reserve Fund. The townhouse, we've been doing a lot of projects. We've done the roof, done electrical, new lighting, but there's a lot of big projects coming up, such as the siding, painting, ultimately the windows, plastering, and we know this is going to be very costly. So we've been trying to build up a capital reserve fund to ultimately take on these projects one by one and not have a massive bill at one time coming out of the operating budget. Any questions on that? Okay. So do you want me to do 9 and 10, or? Okay. All right, this has been an ongoing one for the past couple of years, and we finally have the warrant drafted, we believe, properly for the DRA to accept it and for us to get this passed if the town wants it to. Number 9, to see if the town will vote to increase the veterans tax credit from $100 to $250 and to adopt the provision RSA 72:28B so that veterans tax credit will be available not only to persons who served in qualifying war or armed conflict, but also to persons who are residents of New Hampshire who served not less than 90 days on active service in the armed services of the United States and will honorably discharged or separated from service, or the spouse or surviving spouse of such resident, providing that person is not eligible and is not already receiving the Veterans Tax Credit RSA 72:28 or tax credit for service connected to total disability under RSA 7235. So long and short of it is the bill has been broadened in order to allow us to allow certain veterans that maybe did not serve in designated conflicts. It gives us a little bit more leeway to take on more veterans that can qualify for the tax credit. Also, currently we have the tax credit at $100. We'd be looking to go to $250. With that being said, we'll have more people qualifying for it and increasing the amount. The taxes don't go away. The tax burden gets shifted and spread amongst the entire population, but it's something that the town has more than once said they would like to do in order to thank veterans. Okay?
Under the current $100 amount,
Yes.
does somebody have a number that is currently being shifted away from these folks to the other taxpayers?
What's the number that Jessica told you?
Today, we have 33 veterans. Last time we looked, that's 33 is very close, at $100 apiece. And if we take those 100, if this is approved, and we go to 250, it's about $5,000 more for the existing population. I don't know how many additional veterans are in town that would sign up for the increased benefit.
So at a minimum, it's going to increase,
$5,000. Just based upon the number going up. If the number of qualifying increases, then obviously.
this is a question for what will happen at town meeting. Is it, I'm struggling to remember, is it possible to change the amount, but nothing else in that? As, that's fair game at town meeting?
I believe so.
I believe you can amend warrants on the floor.
As long as we talk in that space, the answer is yes, I
Thank you.
believe.
Okay.
Any further questions on the veterans tax credit? Okay. Number 10, to see if the town will vote to change the name and purpose of the building of the town building and ground maintenance capital reserve fund to the town property and building common maintenance capital reserve fund. Further, to designate the selectmen as agents to expend money. So currently, there's a capital reserve fund that we think could be more adequately purposed for more maintenance type items, such as around here, be it new carpeting, painting, something along those lines. So we have that money that would be available. We wouldn't have to put it into the operating budget and be forced to spend it, or if we don't spend it, it goes to buy the tax rate down. We'll have that money there should any kind of major project like a roof come up or painting, and so that money would be there. And it also allowed us not to have to put an additional line item in the operating budget to fund some projects that we know are coming this year, like the roof on this particular building. Yes, Diane?
So that sounds like you're just looking for the designation for the selectmen to be agents to expend. What is the purpose change?
Right now, if the way we were reading the town building and ground maintenance capital reserve fund, it was almost like we were building money for larger projects, and we wanted the ability just to go ahead, and this is more of a maintenance fund, just for individual items, and as items come up during the coming years, and just to go ahead and repurpose the fund for us to go ahead and use it as a means of keeping the money in the bank. And again, like this year, we had money socked away to do this roof. Our roofer last minute fell and broke his ankle, so we didn't get the roof done, but we desperately need this roof done. But that $10,000 that we put in the operating budget went away, essentially, because we didn't use the money. Yes, sir.
So the only, I guess I have a couple of concerns. One, when I was in the town offices earlier today, I had some free time, and I was looking through the binder over there that described ordinance, that's called ordinances, but it's really warrants. And in 2001, there was a similar article to take the town buildings maintenance fund, which was designated as an expendable trust, from repair and maintaining all town buildings to the repair and maintaining of all buildings and grounds, and to continue to have the selectmen as agents to expend. I don't know, so I don't know if somewhere there was if it changed yet again between 2001 and now, but my question is, well, I guess I have two questions. One, is there any way that maybe the wording had changed inadvertently over time, and in fact you have that authority right now? And then I'll follow up with my second question.
That's possible. I mean, that is possible.
Yeah.
We spent a lot of time looking at warrants today, you know.
Well, I know, and that's why I suggested starting and working backwards, but at any rate, so it seems to me the only purpose change is that instead of building and grounds, it's town property and building common. And I don't see what the purpose change is, which requires, as I understand the purpose change requires a 2/3 vote, otherwise it would just be a majority vote, correct?
Correct.
So I'm still confused about what the purpose really, what the difference is in the purpose.
And we will have to investigate that. That's a very good question. If it's not clear to you, we'll have to work that out. Thank you for that input.
Any other questions on number 10?
Now, let me comment on that. We can
Thank you.
change that because there's no dollars associated with that. We cannot, after this meeting's over, we cannot increase dollars, and we cannot add dollar items. But that's legit to change, because we're not changing the value of it.
I thought you couldn't change the dollar numbers after it's been published.
I believe we can go down. Can't go up. I believe we can go down.
Thank you.
Okay, number 11. Number 11, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5,000 to be deposited into the town garage and storage shed capital reserve fund. Again, the shed behind us is where We keep a forestry truck, we've been keeping odds and ends, as well as making it a public salt shed. The building's in rough shape. Ultimately, we're looking to see down the road if we want to go ahead and get an actual concrete slab poured and put a new structure on top of that. So we've been getting, we've begun last year to put some money away for that. Any questions on number 10? 11? All right, last one is number 12. It's just to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the selectmen's recommended sum of $799,128 for the town operating budget. Said sum does not include special or individual articles addressed in the warrant. So again, this is just, once we go to the budget, you'll see that that is the number of the operating budget, and the town needs to vote on it. Yes, Frank?
I understand that the window is still open for petition warrant articles, is that correct?
Yes?
So there's a potential that a petition warrant article, or 2 or 3 might come in that might also impact the budget, that's a possibility?
Possible.
And then does the budget, after we go through it tonight, does it get adjusted to reflect those petition warrant articles or not?
I really don't know what we have to do with petition articles. I don't know whether we have to have another hearing or not for money impacting petition articles. I don't
Just
know.
curious.
Pretty sure you do if it has money.
Well, then the answer is,
If
we'll
it
have
doesn't,
another hearing.
yeah.
That was my question. Thank you.
Diane?
I'm not sure where the appropriate place is to talk about this. It struck me as I was looking at the warrant article summary that I developed for myself, that this is the first year, in my recollection, that there was no money set aside for the property revaluation.
That's correct.
When we signed on with a new assessing firm, we went from Avatar to Rod Wood. His rates are dramatically lower, and also he's going to do more of a statistical revaluation of the property versus a house by house, which is far more costly. And we do have a decent amount of money in there right now to probably cover a majority of that. So right now, we're still a couple years away from another
19.
So we're in decent enough shape, and we'll get a better sense of how much more money we would need to cover that cost.
Thank you. Following up on Frank's comment, I have a petition warrant article that I would like to present. Is this an appropriate time to do that?
Sure.
Okay. I just would like a copy of this before I leave tonight. So for those who hadn't seen it or signed it, it's a petition warrant article. The purpose is to properly recognize and fund the role of helping the selectmen manage the financial affairs of Brookfield. I have an attached explanation, and the petition warrant, do you want me to bother reading it?
It's up to you.
Okay. Petition warrant article, to see if the town will vote to recognize the separate functions of the town treasurer, RSA 4129, from the Board of Selectmen's responsibility to manage the financial affairs of the town, RSA 4119, in the following manner. Point 1, create and staff a financial administrative assistant position for the purpose of assisting the Board of Selectmen manage the town's financial affairs, which would be account 4130 in the budget. Number 2, raise and appropriate $11,800 for purpose of the financial administrative assistant wages. 3, eliminate the staff position created May 9th, 2017 to review the treasurer's monthly bank reconciliations and annual reports, account 4150.2, and reduce that budget line item by $600. Point 4, reduce the treasurer's annual salary, account 4150.1, by $10,000 to $2,300, which is what I have written, which is incorrect. It would be $2,500, to reflect the duties of that position as defined in RSA 4129. And then the following assert that they are registered voters in the town of Brookfield, and I have obtained 14 signatures.
Okay, thank you. We'll do is we'll give it to the town clerk to verify the signatures, and then we will put it on the warrant. Okay, I think we're done with the warrant. Yes, Ernie?
Just a quick question. If all the warrant articles pass, what is the impact on our tax rate?
Yeah, pretty much the same question.
Well,
And while you're digging that up, if I might make another comment,
yes, sir.
that, I don't know if people have had a chance to look at the budget, but every single department came in under budget, except one which came in on budget. Excellent.
Yes. What we're gonna have to do is sum up all those warrant articles. And if for ballpark numbers, for every 100,000 of spending there, it's $1 on the tax rate. So, yes, Diane?
I had done some calculations prior to, in any event, the effect, based on the budget that was proposed that we're about to discuss, including the warrant articles, my calculations indicate that our tax rate would go up $1.58 per thousand,
And that's based on what?
based on all of the numbers that you folks presented in the budget that was posted today, plus the warrant articles that we just discussed.
And it was adjusted for the revenue?
It was recognizing payments to the school district, the county, and, yes, the revenue as well.
Okay, so you gotta take out the school district. I don't know what number you use that, but we don't control that.
Well, we know what the number's going to be.
We do?
We know what the number's going to be for the first 6 months of 2018.
And the number is?
Well, I can dig it out, but I got the schedule of payments that Mary Lou gets, I thought, from the school district, and this year it was 51% of the total, so I just extrapolated what the second 6 months of 2018 would be to get to a number, what the school district would be. And I understand the Carroll County number has already been posted, and I put that in. So I came out with a total tax, property tax required as $2,131,974.
Could you repeat that number?
$2,131,974, which is a 16.3% increase over our taxes that we, what I had calculated as last year, but the actual property tax collected, yes, the actual tax required last year was $1,833,000 and change. So it's a 16% increase in the tax burden.
So I would suggest that we control the municipal portion. You've got to talk to the school board. This Saturday, there's a deliberative session. Talk to them about their increase. The county meets weekly, monthly.
Weekly at 8:30 a.m.
Wednesday morning.
Talk to them about their increase. This meeting is to talk about the municipal budget. That's all we can control.
Right, but I
That's
just,
all we can control.
understood.
Right?
Just as an aside, if the school district budget goes through, the impact on Brookfield taxes will be 67 cents.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to go over the budget. And the budget is really made up of two components. The first page and a half is revenue, and it's our best conservative estimate of income because we take the income. The way the process works, in September, we true up with the state how we're doing with our spending and what we expect for revenue. And what we do is we take all our expenditures and adjust that based upon revenue. What would be revenue? When you register your car and you pay that tax to the town, that's revenue. When people take property out of current use and have a change use of the property, that's revenue. So we have to estimate what our revenue is going to be to offset our operating expense. And that's what the first page and a half is all about. So I'm starting on page 1. The property tax number will be derived when we're all done with respect to expenditures and revenue, the 1.9 million. That would include, we collect the taxes for the school board, we collect the taxes for the county. So those numbers are in there, and then we'll get bills for those numbers. So we show it as property tax. Okay, land use change tax is 30,000. We were,
For next year.
we picked up 30,000 more than we expected last year. We put 15 in for this coming year. That's what I mean by being conservative on the income side. Yield taxes, we kept at 8,000. Penalties and interest, 15,000, even though we realized 25,000. Motor vehicle permits, West Virginia, was 148, we went up to 130. Building permits, we went up 1,000, based upon what the code enforcement officer tells us, he's busy with building permits. And then we jumped down to other license and fees, $2,000. Landfill permits, we need new dump permits this year, folks. Let's jump down to shared revenue blocks, meals and room tax. The state keeps telling us it's going down. We got more than they expected last year. The highway block grant, we went down a little bit on, we got more than that last year. Other grants, that $5,000 we will talk about shortly, but remember, we're getting another grant for $5,000. Sale of municipal property and interest on investments, $500 and $750. Turning the page. Transfers from the capital reserve fund. This is where it gets a little confusing. Now we're taking out the $80,000 that we talked about earlier. So we're taking that out of the savings, and that's going to be an income to reduce our tax bill. The $16,750 likewise is coming out of savings. So we're going to take out of our savings or capital reserve funds $96,000. Transfer from the expendable trust funds. The Conservation Commission may be funding a forestry management plan. If we decide to do that, they're going to make a decision shortly. That's the $5,000 to cover it out of their trust fund. So we're showing a revenue of $329, and that's a conservative number. We believe it's a conservative number. Yes, Frank?
So looking at the difference in revenue from 2017 to 2018, right now, this is showing 272, 370 versus 329, 329,000 even.
Yep.
But not counting all of the trust funds, which come to about 38 grand, 290. It looks like we're actually planning on revenue going up approximately $18,000, roughly. Okay.
Without telling numbers, I believe that.
Have we looked at any other ways to potentially raise additional revenue through any of these, like potentially looking at our building permit fees and things like that, that might actually raise additional revenue for
Can we
us?
change the fees?
Yeah, if we haven't changed them for a long, long time, and everybody around us has got higher fees, it's something we might want to look at some point in time.
We could do that.
Okay.
I know
But
we
but
changed
reading
them.
this, it looks like we're expecting that, more car registrations, we're making more money on tax liens and things like that. It's about $18,000, it looks like, roughly.
There's about $138,000 in outstanding taxes,
Yeah,
property taxes that are owed to town. And we're getting 18% on that,
yeah.
18% return on that investment. So as long as people pay them within 3 years, so be it. Yes, Diane?
Just a point of clarification. I used the numbers from the budgets that had been provided by you folks, but the actual revenue that we took in, not including any of the property tax that was left blank, was $420,611 last year. And what you're proposing is almost $100,000 less at $329. So I think that I know that you have always conservatively estimated on revenue because you don't want to overestimate, but I look at the difference between what we're looking at for the coming year versus what we actually spent last year, not what was planned for last year, because that's meaningless. It's a plan, it's not actual. So it's kind of a meaningless argument. I probably should have kept my mouth shut because ultimately it doesn't impact our taxes, other than, frankly, I'm sorry, I don't understand completely how the tax rate is determined, but just a point of fact is that you've budgeted much less for the non-property tax revenue than we actually took in. And I don't know, I mean, that's really up to you folks to make that choice. I mean, nobody can really predict.
So which line are you being specific about?
Well, okay, motor vehicle permits.
Yep, 148,
It's
130.
highly unlikely that there are gonna be fewer vehicles.
Okay, I understand what you're saying.
So just editorial comment, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that's the revenue portion. Now we're going to go over to the expense portion. And what I propose is I'll just go to the bottom line for each category if that's acceptable. If you have a question, please ask. And the big change on the executive is the bottom where we say contingency. We moved $5,000 into our budget, and it was in a different department's budget last year. So we took it out of that, put it here. That's why we went up to 34,001.
Was that the one where it was 4199.5 archival? I think that was his line for 5,000, which went to zero.
It was in, yes, it was in there, but it really wasn't his
You
money.
just move it around.
That's
Got
right.
it.
And the next one is Virginia, election registration and vital statistics. There's really a number of components to this. The first one is the town clerk. That one stayed effectively flat. Supervisors of the checklist went up because we're having 3 elections this year. Last year we had 1. Same with the moderator. The treasurer is up a little because of some dues and workshops. And we hired a person to look at the books monthly with Mary Lou to make sure the numbers are being handled correctly. That's why I went to 14.1. Tax collector is flat. Assessor clerk is effectively flat, down just a tad. Trustees of the trust funds, I'm on page 4. 700. Auditing,
Excuse me,
yes, ma'am.
assessor clerk,
Yes,
the deputy assessor clerk.
yes.
Do we still have a deputy assessor clerk?
We're trying to find one and train one.
Also, in my time here in the last day or so, I was looking through all the meetings that I missed for the last 6 months, the meeting minutes, and saw that salary adjustments were approved in November by the Board of Selectmen for several positions. Are
Yes.
those salary adjustments reflected in this budget?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, where am I at?
Audit.
Auditing. The number came down a little from what was budgeted last year. As you remember, there were some questions about our financial health raised at the town meeting, and we've engaged with a financial firm to look at the books and make sure that we're doing things correctly. We're going to continue to engage with that company. It was very beneficial, and we're only paying for time spent, so it's a good investment. And that's why that number went up to, it came down a little bit, but we raised it at town meeting last year. Yes, Frank?
There's a bookkeeping item if a line item for MS5 is 000, and it's been 000 for a while. Why is it still, do we want to keep it there?
Thank you, good
I'll
question.
take it out.
Good, that's fine.
Yeah. Do we expect meeting in a year or two from now or not?
No,
Okay.
because that
This-
is a state form, it's now the MS, actually, it's now the MS 535,
Yeah,
and I do that at the state website,
okay,
and so, no.
great. Save some ink.
Legal expenses, 15,000. The reevaluation, we leave $1 in there just in case something comes up and we have to do a reevaluation. We don't expect to be doing it this year. Payroll taxes are a derivative of what we pay. And salaries. Planning and zoning's down a little. They came down a little bit on their secretary salary. The zoning board stayed the same. Cleaning the building, shoveling snow, telephone, website support. Is up a little. Yes, Frank?
Now, in this section, just for clarification, on line 4194210, repairs to buildings and grounds, you're asking for $10,000. Is this money you eventually might move into the capital, that new capital reserve fund at some future year, or?
No, once it's in operating, if we don't spend it,
Okay,
we tell the state in March that we haven't spent it. We tell the state in March what we have spent.
all right. So your intention is to have this 10,000 for doing normal maintenance around the place?
Yes.
And then if you want to do a special project like the roof, you would pull it out of this capital reserve fund or something?
Or if we want to do
This
some,
roof,
or if we want to do some maintenance in this room.
okay,
The way the law is written, we can't spend any significant money from operating until the town meeting,
okay.
which means we lose the winter months for painting and work inside. We can take that out of capital reserve.
Yeah. I would suggest, you've explained that before to some of the meetings I've attended. I'd suggest at town meeting, you might want to explain that when we go through that ballot article. That's one of the reasons why you want the ability to expend from that fund for the January, February, March. Thank you.
Yes, Diane?
And just to be clear then, that $10,000 amount that Frank just referenced is money that right now you can't access or don't feel that you can access because you need to be very conservative. Is that correct?
That's right.
Thank you.
We voted to get a new, the increases in website support, we voted to upgrade the website. We have obsolete software, it's aging software, we will have to do it someday, so we bought the software. We're paying for it over 3 years. Town cemeteries. Is,
Excuse me, Rich.
yes,
Just to back up one, town-owned property, $600. What's that is compared to like the maintenance fund?
please, I don't know what that $600 is for.
Okay, so if need be that a property needs to be taken over by the town for lack of paying property taxes, we have put in the last few years a $600 amount in case the town has to add it to the insurance policy, has to pay for fuel or something just to maintain the property until something can be done with it, and that's all it is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I remember.
Sorry.
That's what I remember now. Yes, sir.
A specific example, the town took over a house on Pike Brook Road at one point a few years ago, and we had to put new locks on the doors, and we had to keep the oil on so the pipes didn't freeze. And there was a little bit of a scramble for the budget to do that, and I believe that's when this line item showed up in the budget.
Yes, there was.
So that it would be there for future use.
Thank you. Yep, Diane?
Do we have any such properties now?
We have, no, we don't own them now.
Thank you.
In March, we do that. In March, after 3 years,
we expecting to own some?
No, but there are some that are on the hairy edge, but we're not expecting to own any.
All right, thank you.
And where am I? Cemetery, thank you. Okay, so the big reduction there, the trees were installed. There was a donation that the cemetery folks received to pay for most of the trees, if not all of the trees. And what's left to do is the flagpole and some site work. Insurance is the actual number. Under archiving, Craig Evans is the lead person there, and we've hired 2 people to work with him to learn how to do it and how we're organized, and to spend some time archiving and saving all our very interesting records, town records.
Excuse me,
But we pulled the 5,000 out. Yes, sir.
where are the town records?
The town records are in the town vault,
Where,
right there.
okay, under his supervision?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So there's very few keys, and we don't even have, huh?
He and the clerk, right?
Very few keys, very few.
So if I have a question about town records, I will check with him, and possibly what I'm looking for might be in the town vault?
Could be.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, public safety. Wakefield Fire and Ambulance was 211, went to 290. It's our understanding, as we investigated, that they were having trouble staffing the fire and the ambulance crews. So they've added 3 full-time employees, firemen, EMTs. And our share of that is the bulk of that increase.
And the problem with the staffing was with you needed more volunteers.
They weren't getting them. So when the bell went off, they couldn't get the people. So we thank them for stepping up to it and getting the staff. Okay, let's get on to forestry. Last year the budget was 76, we're suggesting 1153. We're suggesting that the town move to a forest fire warden and deputy, and basically the fire truck, keep it on the road, but don't put any more money in it. And the rationale behind that is we're spending a lot of money with Wakefield to fight our fires and buy our equipment. So we don't see the benefit of duplicating that equipment here. So that's our recommendation. Yes, Brad?
I'd like to make a request on this area, Rich, that you consider increasing the forestry expenses from $1 to $1,500, primarily for the last bit of equipment to round out our cache of equipment that we need. And secondly, the truck equipment and maintenance, I'm not sure if that's where we fall or not, but enough money to buy at least 1 tank of fuel for the truck. So I'd like to increase the budget by, and that may come under the first line under forestry expenses, which that will still be covered under the 1,500.
Just make our notes. We'll talk about it after the hearing's over. You can be in here to listen to that. You're suggesting 1,000?
1,500, please.
In which line?
That would be line 4225300, forestry expenses.
It would be helpful if you would tell us what equipment you're talking about.
Primarily hose. That's one thing there's not a surplus of in the area, including our equipment. Wakefield's is getting old, they need to get some new hose. And
Now, we're not giving them, but they're charging us $290,000 for service.
yes,
Okay.
they are, and as we've chatted before, by RSA, I know they provide our fire suppression, but we are responsible for all of our wildland fires.
Be careful when you say that. We are responsible financially.
Correct.
We are not responsible to have a forestry department. We
That
have
is
to have-
correct.
Okay. So
To the best
financially,
of my knowledge, that is
well,
correct.
that's what, I think, the way I read the RSA is. But go ahead. Yes, I'm sorry, Brad.
And so just try and develop a small cache of our own. Right now, we have a limited number of people. I do have a call out to get more people interested and qualified.
Well, how many dedicated people do you have?
Right now, 4.
Dedicated. Primary Brookfield.
4.
4.
Yes. Have enough equipment to help fit some more folks. Those that are interested, we include training and so forth.
4. Okay.
And that's the other thing, is, I guess would come into forestry expenses would be training. It takes about $100 to train a person.
And our feeling is that we're spending a lot of money next door.
Yeah, understand.
And it feels like we're duplicating. Is that fair? Yeah, you should for head nod.
Well, yeah, and we also, if the town wants to put more money there, we want the town to tell us they want it.
That's fair too.
That was the primary thing that was said.
That was-
Understand, just defending my responsibility, should we say.
That was our recommendation
Thank you.
and the rationale.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, Dana?
It's been 6 months or so since I looked at the contract between Wakefield and Brookfield, and I don't have it committed to memory, but my recollection was that it specifically excluded in the agreement that they're charging us this year, almost $291,000, it specifically excludes forest fires.
It excludes the labor for a forest fire. When I met with Todd, the discussion was, they will come, but they don't want to be burdened with a $100,000 labor bill to put out a forest fire. And every town owns that. That's the town's responsibility to fund that labor. Now, we've had 2 forest fires up there this year, and we haven't received any bills,
Other than our own forest fire.
other than for, was that this year?
Last year.
That was last year.
Was it last year or the year before?
It was last year.
It was last year, see, the time flies.
Well, 2016.
2016.
Yes, that's what I meant.
So that, there's no change in the risk there. We're responsible for labor.
But when you use I guess I'm confused, you're using the argument that we're paying a lot to Wakefield.
For equipment. For equipment.
Thank you.
This is equipment. We left $1,000 in there for the warden's salaries.
All right, thank you for that clarification.
All right, so where are we at now, guys?
CEO.
CEO, thank you. We made a change in the CEO area. We no longer staff the office on Thursday mornings. It's by appointments only, so you see that the salary area came down. That was the big reduction there. Emergency management. This $5,000 that we're going to be spending here is the same $5,000 that I talked about earlier on revenue. It's a state grant to fund the emergency management plan.
Emergency management operations.
Operations plan. So Brad is heading that up. We'll be charged with the $5,000, but we expect to get reimbursed from the state, or FEMA. State, FEMA, but that's on the income side, so that's a wash. Okay, let's jump down to highways and streets. Summer maintenance, we're talking about working on roads, 80, and material, 30. Winter, material is 15, and snow and ice is 55, keeping it flat at 180. The number's down because we didn't get everything to Bryce last year. We got hung up on Bryce. Yes, Diane?
And the relationship of these numbers to the numbers that was discussed for the road and bridge funds?
Yes, the 80,000, this 80,000 is coming out as a warrant article.
No.
No. This money here is when Eddie
This
is
is entirely
grading
for
the
that
road,
contract.
ditching, limbing.
Normal,
The $80,000 in the warrants is purely for the paving, graveling, and grinding
the
of
big,
the roads.
the
Where
not,
does that show?
non-routine stuff?
That is the non-routine stuff, so that is a designated project. This money here is more of maintenance of the roads, grounds, tree goes
Normal
out.
activities.
Normal activities,
Thank
correct.
you.
Okay. We have to check on something because I don't know where that 80,000 is.
No.
No.
She's talking about the warrant article that we're putting $80,000 in, taking $80,000 out for the road projects. It just so happens to match this $80,000. Those are two different things,
I understand that.
okay?
What I want to get trouble fund is the 80,000
down
Right there,
here,
okay,
capital
there it is,
outlay.
there it is, page 7, okay. That's okay. So we have $180,000 for road maintenance. It's flat, we didn't spend it all last year, we got hung up on some issues. Some of the road prep comes out of this before we pave. Solid waste is down $4,000. I understand they had some staffing changes over there and have newer people at a lower salary, that's my understanding. Right?
Yep.
Okay.
I believe that when I looked at it, it's their insurance, because they got younger people, their health insurance went down, and that's partially what brought this down, actually, yeah.
Okay, so then the next section we wanted to highlight, because these are really, other than the welfare, this is really grant money that we are writing checks to have the money leave the town, and we just want to highlight it to the town that the town is doing this. So, human services, they asked for $358. Central New Hampshire VNA is $1,500. Meals on Wheels was $1,000, and Medication Bridge went to 0 per their request. Welfare is our local general assistance. TRICAP is energy efficiency and help in that nature, and that was $4,000. The food pantry is $2,000, for a total of $6,000.
So does this mean that Meals on Wheels has not been served in Brookfield?
They have been served. They never requested
They
money.
Never
didn't
requested
request
money.
last year.
Same with Northern Human Services, presumably, that's mental health services.
Yes, they were late too. Parks and Rec, that's $4,200 to participate in the Wolfboro program. For all families in Brookfield, all visitors to your families when they have visitors. I'm trying to talk it up because we should use it more if we're gonna pay for it. Yes, Frank?
Have we received the actual bill yet from them? I thought as of last week.
We got the bill. We got the bill.
We haven't gotten the request for this year, or is this it, 42?
No, we didn't get a request.
Okay.
So this is highlighting it to the town. We didn't get the bill. We didn't get the request. We got the bill
Okay,
for last year.
and it's 4216.
For last year.
Okay.
The library, 14,000. Again, it's just highlighted to the town. Okay, Agricultural Commission. We keep $1 in there in case we want to activate it. Right now, it's pretty inactive. Heritage Commission is $1,050, and the big one there is the book.
I need to do some research and planning. We're down to our last 20 copies of the town history. And I need to try and figure out
What's that under?
the expenses for the Heritage Commission,
It's under
4 or
expenses, that's the
5, yep.
$500?
the $500. I know I'm gonna need to do some research on getting it republished and stuff like
I
that.
might be able to help you and get, if you want to go soft cover, I can get it to you on demand.
That's kind of what I'm looking to do.
Right, so I have a particular vendor only, as long as you spend $150,
I bet we could do that.
they'll do X, whatever, how many
Yeah.
copies that is.
Excellent.
So that might be a way to do it, because then you don't have to hold a big stock.
That's right. Right. So I need to do a little bit of research before that on a couple other things, Tom, and then I'll contact you.
Okay, you give me, I actually have a copy of it, I can probably get a quote for it.
Okay, thank you.
Conservation Commission, the big thing there is a $5,000 placeholder. They went out, or helped us go out for quotes on a forest management plan for the town-owned property. The town cannot get any grant money from anyone until we have a forest management plan. They want to see the plan. So there's discussion in the Conservation Commission about funding that. and if they fund it, make a recommendation, they'll fund it, and we'll spend it out of their money. That's the hope. Debt service, we have not had to take a tax anticipation note, but that's in there in case we ever have to. Yes, Diane?
I was trying to look back very quickly on the revenue side. As I remember, we got roughly $1,000 this year in income from investments, is that correct?
What,
It's
I thought it was like seven.
for interest, no, 750 is the new number. For, you're talking about interest on the
Interest on
bank accounts?
investments, right, yeah, you almost made $1,100 this year. Which I think is great. I assume that was the investments that had been transferred over to the Charter Trust?
No. This is only local bank interest.
Oh, where does that interest show then, from all the investments that you shifted over, or the money that you shifted over to Charter
And the
Trust?
trustees of the trust fund report.
Oh, that doesn't come back to the general fund here?
No.
Okay, thank you. All right, so, sorry, I was trying to compliment you guys for making use of the funds.
The trustees did very well. They get 4% on the short term and close to 10% on the long-term investments.
Okay,
Oh my God.
so,
That's fantastic.
what I really wanted to say was, I think we should zero this out, because the likelihood of us needing tax anticipation notes is so remote. Why not just reduce it to a 1? Leave a placeholder.
Okay, thank you for your input. Okay, capital outlays, $30,000 on the town land. This is the third of 7 payments. So, the operating budget is 799,128. That's the sum of that. Most of that comes from our services received. And now you'll see the warrant articles that Brian talked about earlier, number 7, number 6, and these numbers true up with what Brian described earlier. So the total budget is a little over $1 million to be spent, but that's got to be adjusted by the revenue. So it comes back down to the 700 range.
What was the final number, 790?
Well, in that range, yes, but we're gonna make some more adjustments.
Just a
So
question
it
on,
might go up or down.
Pardon me?
Is there gonna be any significant swing to that? Is it, that's more or less where it is?
I suspect it's, see,
You don't know of any big things that's gonna push it one way or another?
we know that the value of the property in town is going up very nicely. People are
Yes, it is.
building, and that helps with the tax rate. Last year,
Right, yeah,
last year we added $1 million to the tax base.
Okay,
That was very helpful.
okay.
So we won't know that until September.
Well, that wouldn't affect your expenses, or?
No, we would expect
Or would
revenue.
you expect your revenue, yes?
And it impacts the
The
ratio.
rate, and the rate presumably.
That's right, the ratio based upon the value of the property in town.
Okay.
So it's very difficult to say.
By the way, what was that last year, the last time the state gave you the equalization ratio?
85.
What was it?
85.
85, ooh.
We're forced to do it when we get to 80.
So
and we
that
think
means
it's gonna
there's a
be 19.
15-point gap between what is the valuation of properties currently and what they're selling for, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
That's right. Good age. Yes, Frank?
So just doing the back of the napkin calculation, between 2017 and 2018, that bottom line is going up about $79,000. And we already earlier said that our revenue's going up by about 18 or so, not counting the warrant articles. So bringing that back down, it looks like we're going up about 60 grand or $60,000 or roughly 0.6 cents on our tax rate. Would be the increase in the municipal portion that might impact our tax bill when, depending on what the equalization rate did, correct?
Based upon what the change in the value of the properties.
Value of other properties, yeah, right. And which could swing it either way.
So maybe we should
But
start
probably
a
will swing it
promotion.
down.
Should only go up, should only go up. Oh, the value of the property should only go up.
It can go up, which would lessen the tax burden because.
That's right.
Okay,
That's right.
so the cap of this budget as it stands right now, not counting a couple of the suggestions you were given here today, is just roughly, potentially might raise the municipal portion of our tax bill by at most 0.6, roughly.
0.6 what?
The-
On the municipal portion.
On the municipal point.
Where's, what's the unit of measure?
Like you said,
For-
every
for
$100,000
$1,000
is a buck.
60
So 60
cents.
cents.
Thank you.
60 cents.
Thank you.
60 cents, all right,
Bad tax
all right. I was abbreviating.
rate. 0.6, I know what it was. Okay, that's your analysis.
That's my.
It seems reasonable.
Exactly, yes.
Based on what we're talking about.
Okay, any other questions or input? Yes?
What's the total impact of the, I know everybody knows this, but I don't, of the school in Carroll County part of what we have to pay? What's the total, what's that total bill?
We pay the county about 120, 130,
130,
and we pay the school board like 1.1.
1.2 million.
Was it a 1.3?
So we don't have a lot of, I mean, we don't have a lot of control over
Yeah.
what's happening to the taxes.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Comeau is our state rep and has tried to change the formula for the way school taxes are assessed, because it's 75% attendance and it's 25% valuation. That's the only part of your tax rate that has that element in it.
Would you
And
like
there are a
to-
lot of people that argue it should be the other way around.
Can I give a quick report
Would
about
you
what
like to
happened?
talk to that, as long as it's talking taxes?
Well, that's
Thank
what
you.
I'll talk two things.
Okay,
This year alone, the legislature put in over 1,000 bills. Last session, there were so many bills going through the legislature, and I have some video of this, I'm not supposed to do that, but I have video of it, of the speaker going through the bill so fast, it sounded like it was an auctioneer.
No,
I mean, that's terrible.
so American.
People complain, but, but it's not gonna repeat because the new speaker, Gene Chandler, refuses to do it that way, so he's gonna spread it out further. Out of the 1,000 bills, I only focused on 2 major sponsored bills that I put in. Because I looked for what 2 things had the most impact on us. It was the school taxes, and actually it was a portion of the county tax that people don't usually hear about. The county tax was the HHS's Bureau of Elderly and Adult Services. Out of the 10 counties, each county is apportioned what they have to pay for taking care of elderly and adolescents. But they used to actually go through a list of actual people to make sure, whoever passed away, you don't pay for them, whoever who doesn't live here anymore, they take them out. Now they use some kind of an algorithm. The delegation 2 years ago refused to pay the DRA bill $200,000 out of the $4.3 million that they asked for, because they couldn't explain how are you coming up with the apportionment? What is this algorithm? Nobody in HHS could come back and explain how the algorithm actually worked. I wanted to see some proof. So DRA came back into one of the delegation meetings and basically said, excuse me, you have to pay this. There is no, you don't have to pay it, you have to. I don't know what they would have done to us if we didn't. But
Is there something in the RSAs that says that?
says that we have to pay our bill, yes, absolutely.
Well, I mean, this particular bill.
Yes, you have to pay it. So what I did is I figured, well, if I have to figure out the tax apportionment, I looked for how is HHS actually operating. So I thought, well, let's see if they have any audits. So I went to the legislative budget office where they hold some of the audits, and I only discovered 2 audits. 2003 and 2009. Both of them, that's a long time ago.
6 years. yeah.
Yes. So, and they had a lot of findings in the reports. And in the report, it would say that HHS concurred with all the errors and the poor performance that they had, which included the algorithm, which it says actually in the report that it was so nonsensical they couldn't even figure it out. So I'm always thinking, okay, a lot of times government, to make them seem like they're doing something, they create books and paper and reports and studies, and they think they did something and they throw it on the shelf and you never hear from it again. So I said, well, what about all those things they found? What did they do about it? I can't find anything. So I don't know if anybody went back to make sure. So I put legislation in to do a performance audit on the whole department of HHS. It went through committee. Everybody pretty much agreed in committee that HHS should be audited again, at least for performance.
It's a huge part of the budget.
Oh, it's huge. I mean,
Yeah.
our county budget, it went, 2 years ago, it was a little over 4 million. It's now 5.2 million. Last year in session, we had to do an emergency appropriation to give HHS more money because they were gonna have a budget shortfall. Well, these are all flags to me, so that was one thing that I tried to attack. That still has not been voted on, but I'm hoping we will see the light that, you know, you can't go from 2009 until now with all of that money and never have a performance audit. The second one was the school taxes. I've been here for 7 years, and every single budget cycle, everybody's complaining about the cost of the school. You can't blame the school board, and you can't blame Wolfboro, you can't blame property poor or property rich towns. No one's going to the meetings. I started videotaping the school board meetings, and nobody from the public shows up. So that's got to change, and especially I'm telling every single town, Effingham, Ossipee.
No, you mean the government?
Well, the towns that I videotape, I tell them all, deliberative session is Saturday, you have to go. But you're telling me that this Saturday at 10 a.m. at Kingswood Regional, at Kingswood Arts Center. I feel that the bill was good in the way it said that we should be using equalized valuation only. The county is equalized valuation. They add up all your property, you figure out how much you're gonna pay. Wolfboro pays more than Brookfield. Tuftonboro pays more than Brookfield. It's just the way it's being done all over. Our agreement with the school district was put together, as far as I can tell, back in 1963. The statute says that every 5 years, we may revisit that formula if it's before 1963. So now I'm trying to figure out how are we supposed to go after reviewing it at least. And I think we're going to have an answer. But those are the two bills that I put in. The committee, 5 people on the committee that heard the school bill are from property poor towns. They knew exactly what I was trying to do because there were some towns that were paying over $30. It was.
Well, that thing has always been complaining
Yes.
about.
Yeah. So I'm sure there are other ways of doing this, and I think the agreement might be the issue, or a way of doing it.
Well,
And I
for
think,
63, that's when they first formed the school district.
yeah, actually,
Started in 64.
the agreement looks like it was in a mimeograph machine. I don't know if you remember what a mimeograph is.
All right.
I'm actually
But-
remembering that.
Would you talk to how you changed the agreement?
You want me to talk to how I would change the
No, no,
agreement?
no, no.
The bill
I'll
that
be-
gets submitted to you.
If you want to change the agreement, we have to go to the session and vote on changing it. We've got 500 voters, Wolfboro's got 4,000 voters. Ossipee has some couple thousand.
Yeah.
You sum up all our voters, it's very difficult for us to change it at the voting booth.
That may not be the only way to do this at deliberative session. Those town agreements, I have to research how they actually came about. You know, you hear a lot of government agencies using MOUs or memorandums of understanding, and they act like the memorandum of understanding is some kind of legal document. I have not really seen a legal document that was signed, stamped, and notarized that is an agreement. I don't know how this is happening. I just think we should question it, because it's
Would-
way too long.
Since 1963, the issue of the formula, the 75-25, has been a warrant article at a deliberative session, and in every instance, like you said, it's been voted down. So the issue has been out there. The people, as we presently exist, will not support a change. They like where they're at.
Well, there's gotta be a way.
Numbers, yeah.
There's gotta be a fair way of doing it, and I would certainly, this time around, work with the school board and all the different towns, because there's movement within the other towns that, I hate to say property poor, because nobody's really poor, but the property poor towns really need something done. And I think if we all put our heads together, we should be able to figure this out, so at least it's more equitable for everybody. Because I don't even know if this is even constitutional, the way it's done.
You have to be careful when you say property poor. For many years, the richest town in this school district was Brookfield, by income per capita.
Oh, income per capita, yeah, but assessed valuation, no way.
Oh, I understand that.
Yeah, no, that's the effect is that
But you can't say Brookfield's a property poor town.
Well, it's, if you do assessed valuation, we're one of the, we've got to be the smallest.
Well, I used that term because in committee, everyone understood clearly that it was, property rich property poor.
Yeah, most people didn't know that.
My only point is, I mean, we're sitting here tonight, go through this thing, and you're talking $1,000 here, $1,000 there. I mean, it seems to me that all our efforts should be directed at the county and at the school. And, we need to find a way to come up with a better agreement. Because this budget, I mean, I'm always amazed at how we run this town and the amount of money that we spend. It's not a lot of money. And yet, I mean, and we're all here tonight because we're interested in that, but the big nut isn't here. The big nut is with the school and the county.
Now, back to the county. The county in the past was a mess. I know you've been probably following in the news about the no audits for years and all the issues.
Right.
Now, I filmed those meetings for almost 6 years now. Every single week. A lot has changed. I don't see, the budget has not been absolutely finalized yet, but if you look at the commissioner's budget, it's pretty much level. So it's actually coming into play, all the policies that have been put in, so there is movement there. That's why I went right for that largest item on the budget, which was that BEAS line, that we just have to pay it, and we can't even question it, and I'm like, that can't stay that way.
Thank you, Ed.
And what's the status of your school bill? Didn't you say it's,
The school bill was ITL. That means a bill gets created, it goes into the legislature, it gets sent to a committee that's of what it's about, which is education. It went to the education committee.
Yeah.
It was heard in committee, and it was ITL, which is inexpedient to legislate. The reason given that I heard is those agreements. The state, in many instances, does not want to go back down to an agreement that townspeople made and abruptly change that, so.
ITL, what does that mean?
yeah,
It means
Means in
that,
our language.
well, ought to pass would mean that the committee said
So ought to
we all
pass.
want it to pass.
All right?
And that's a recommendation.
so it's
to the
on
whole
track
House.
for going forward?
No, that's what I wanted to say.
I'll-
No,
They
go to
killed
the
it.
general court,
They
and
tabled
then
it.
they could be voted down still, but the committee said it.
So where is
When a
this?
bill goes into committee, the committee hears it. They have to send that recommendation. There's 2 recommendations. Inexpedient to legislate, ITL, or ought to pass, OTP. If it's inexpedient to legislate, no matter what, that recommendation goes to the House for a full vote. Now, because it was an ITL and everyone said, meaning I believe it was all 15, 16 people said it's all ITL, they all wanted ITL, because they don't want to disrupt the agreements. It's going to go to the House on the consent calendar, which means that it won't get debated unless I pull it off of that calendar. And then I go out on the floor and I try to overturn the committee recommendation. My idea was that I could put an amendment in, a floor amendment, and I could pull it off and argue that we should send this to a study committee. Perhaps there's something the state can do if everybody gets together and looks at it. The problem with that is it's in the second year. In the second year, study committees are not very favored because you know, everybody's gonna try to start getting elected again, which it seems like it's all they ever care about, is in November. So most likely, I'm still gonna pull it off to make the point, I'm still gonna pull it off to you know, gather steam, and because there's a lot of people that agree with me, but most likely the study committee is also gonna fail. This is the first step, because I don't stop, I don't know if you don't know
So
who I am, but I don't stop what I'm doing.
effectively, it's done this year. Chances
I'm not
are,
gonna say that until
I
it
understand,
happens.
but you gave us two options. The one option sounds like it's gonna be voted on in the House, in Concord, whatever is the House of the Senate. Concord is
The House of Representatives.
The other one said, we're not gonna vote on it specifically, it's gonna be in this list of bills, we're just gonna
If
say
I don't
no
pull it
to.
off, everybody just says aye, and they either pass,
Yep.
the alta passes, we'll just go to the Senate, and
Or
the
to
ITLs
pass.
will just.
Anything we can do, wrapping it up, anything we can do to help, other than what we've done.
Well, the bill already went to executive committee, which is when they vote on to pass or ITL, so you can't send any emails or anything else. I would just, you could send emails to the whole entire House and ask them to overturn the ITL. This is just the beginning. This is not the first time this bill went in. But it keeps failing because people put the bill in. People are too afraid to put the bill in because they're afraid they're gonna get unelected if they put a bill in against the school. That's not my.
The school has to be funded, it's how it's funded is really what the discussion. Nobody's arguing not to fund the school.
No, nobody's arguing.
No, absolutely.
So I'm not gonna stop doing what I'm doing. So even if I don't get reelected or somebody else gets reelected, I know so many people down there, I'll have somebody else put a new bill in. I'm not gonna stop until there's a solution. I
Oh,
can't,
Ed,
people
stop.
just
Thank you.
stop.
For a minute there, I thought you said you weren't gonna stop.
I'm sorry, I just came back from Concord, you gotta talk quick.
Yes, Diane.
I'd just like to follow up on Ed's comments. I'm not sure if everybody in the room is aware that the Services Review Committee that met and produced a report last spring had a very large section on the ways in which, identifying the issues, financial issues with the school district and the distribution of costs. And I would ask that be made available. I don't know if there's still a copy over there, but it was pulled off the website after being on there for just a month. I would just ask the Board of Selectmen to have that report made available.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other input on the budget? Okay, the hearing is closed. Now, we're gonna figure out what we wanna do with the budget. We got some input.
Is the meeting over?
No, the hearing is over. The hearing is over, we have to decide what we're gonna do with the input. Okay, so we got some requests to make some modifications
Hey,
to
let's get to it.
We can talk about it, talk about it.
Did you notate the ones that weren't brought up?
Yeah, there was a request to increase the forest fire, and there was a request to drop that to $1. We don't have to accept those.
Mine's leaving.
And again, I mean, if we want to change it, we can change it, if we don't. The one we had was on the forest fire.
No, because I haven't really had time to process it, so I apologize, but
Okay, that was the one request, and the other request was the interest down to $1.
Mr. Chairman,
That's if we have to take it, if we have to take it, we're done, Frank.
Could you ask for quiet so I could hear you, please?
Sure, that's fair. Folks, shh, some people want to listen to us. Believe it or not. So we got two requests. Forestry, 1,500, and the debt service down to 1.
I'm good with both of those.
What do you suggest?
I was paying the 1,500 and dropped the 8,000 down to 1. As long as we have that $1, then we have enough money usually floating in the budget that we could handle interest, so there's no reason to have that in there. And
Why are we buying hose? Why are we buying hose?
if that rounds out our equipment needs, if that rounds out our equipment needs and we have a pump, then I'd say we get the hose to finalize this overall equipment. I'm also hearing that the hoses are getting old, so.
Not Wakefield.
Is that, you just said that the way, right, did you
Says
say?
the Wakefield hoses were doing
The conversation I had with the fire chief was very supportive of Brookfield acquiring some of its own equipment. Thought it was a good idea, stated that their hose was getting old, there was going to be need replacement, where our fires are as remote as they are. Some of them have and are going to require a lot of hose. And if Brookfield had equipment to go towards that end, it would be a very good idea.
Would this hose fit on the new pump we got?
Yes, that's what it's for.
We spend all this money on a pump. Seems like a pump that's gonna do nothing without a hose.
So it would be 1,000 feet of hose. We have about 600 feet now.
My take is, we go over and see Todd, and if we're not funding him adequately, he should say that. We're giving him $100,000.
Okay.
And that's my take.
Plus, capital.
Captain works, yeah. So, I
All right,
guess,
so you guys are saying no to the 1,500,
and I say yes to the $1 on the budget. You should
Okay.
probably answer.
so drop that down
You okay with
to
that?
$1.
Why was it 1,000?
Just think-
$1 would keep them open.
Well, I don't know.
Do we just earmark the money there in case we ever had to pay that interest, but I think
If we ever hit a pay interest, but right now, we, looks like,
So it sounds like it wouldn't make a difference, it's like $999.
yes.
right.
Yeah, no problem.
So I'm dropping it to $1.
Yes. And we're gonna leave the forestry, and we're gonna go argue with a town meeting. If we have it.
Look, it used to be most towns collected their taxes annually, and they did need tax anticipation notes. But most, almost all towns are now every 6 months.
I will
So
also say
that's,
that when
that's
I,
pretty much eliminated for most towns, especially with, with better tax collection and other things. You don't see it very commonly where you get a tax. Without a
However-
disaster.
Okay?
when I started as treasurer, I had trouble paying the bills on, when I got to the end of my
Yeah,
6
we've got a couple
months.
close
Really?
years.
Oh, yeah.
That's,
It's better now,
better, yeah.
but when I
But
started, it
you also
wasn't.
had to ask the tax, you had to talk to the school
Okay.
about time.
So-
and payment.
We finalized, this is what we're gonna call as our budget. We'll put it on the website as our proposed budget, no draft. The warrant articles, we have to look at, Diane raised an issue with respect to that one warrant article that wasn't clear. Look at that.
The what one?
Number, the one where we
10.
number 10,
There's no money involved.
no money, but it wasn't quite clear.
Okay.
So we have to deal with that, so we're not ready to put that one up. And then we have to find out what we do with this petition warrant article. Whether we have to have another hearing to talk about the funding and where that goes. I'll talk to the lawyer about it.
Yep.
Okay? Yes, Diane?
We did not have a special meeting on the petition in 2016 that increased, the petition warrant article that increased the treasurer's pay. There was no special meeting for that.
That's interesting. Oh, well. We'll let it roll.
But was that one already on the warrant when we actually had the
If
hearing?
it was on,
If it was on the
warrant,
warrant,
then
you
we're
don't have
okay.
to-
It was already on the warrant when we
If it was
had the
added-
hearing. I think we removed it after, or we struck it after.
All depends.
I don't remember. So
All depends. We can't change the numbers
Not numbers.
now in the head items.
I'm thinking, Rich, the question on changing the building maintenance funds and so forth. If I recall correctly, there were separate funds per building, and that was consolidated into one trust fund. Instead of having a trust fund for the town hall, a trust fund for the office building and so forth. If I'm remembering correctly, that was just consolidated into one trust fund.
Okay. I can give you the story later on that.
Okay,
Okay. Anything else?
Okay.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
thank you.
Greg and I went through the town reports in 1991. It was a fair.
I